My fellow Americans, have you ever heard "give me liberty" or "give me death," or "with liberty and justice for all," and then thought to yourself, what does that really mean? Is it really important to me? We see arguments today online where people are refusing to follow CDC guidelines and screaming about their rights, but why is that? Why are people so passionate about their rights? What is liberty? To understand this, we must observe the past and understand the purpose of why the Founding Fathers wrote the Declaration of Independence. Why did they write the Bill of Rights? Why do we need a Constitution in the first place? Why do we have a Statue of Liberty? We need to educate ourselves on the history of our nation and the significance that liberty plays in our lives so that we can answer these questions. Let's ask ourselves, what is liberty? Let us start with the basic definition of liberty. In simple terms, it means the power and scope to act as one pleases. The dictionary cites liberty as a noun, the state of being free within a society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on matters of one's life, behaviors, or political views. So what is liberty? It is freedom. Freedom from being told what to do. Now that we understand the definition of liberty, you might start to think to yourself, okay, but we're all free to do what we want. So what's really important about that? It is true that every American is granted this right, and some people will fight others over differences in opinions. Some people might laugh when you start talking about the importance of freedom, and some might even suggest that we really don't have any liberty at all. I'm sure there's even a few people out there that might suggest that having liberty is bad because they prefer that everyone should think the same. So what is liberty? It is the right of each American to think whatever they wish. It is the right for your voice to reflect how you truly feel, even if it's negative. For us to understand the need for liberty, we need to travel back in time to the 13 original colonies. In this time, King George III of England oversaw the 13 colonies and was issuing rules for the colonists to follow from all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. After the French and Indian Wars, the king decided that he could make up his war deficit by issuing a series of tax acts on the colonists. He started with the Sugar Act in 1764, which was a tax on sugar, and the Stamp Act in 1765, which was a tax on newspapers and card games and even dice games. By 1773, he had issued the Tea Act, which obviously led to the most famous Boston Tea Party. In case you forgot, that was when 100 men snuck onto the Boston Harbor ships in December of 1773 and emptied all the ship's contents of tea into the ocean. Kind of a nice way of saying, here's what we think about your taxes, King George. Why would the colonists be so upset? Why wouldn't they just pay their taxes? Because they were not given a choice. Their voices on these matters were not even representative. They cited their disapproval for taxation without representation. So again, I ask, what is liberty? It is the ability for your voice to matter when authorities try to tell you what to do. It is the right to be represented by someone who cares about your concerns when decisions are made that affect you when you're not even there. To truly appreciate the potential of liberty, we can look at the Second Virginia Convention, which was held at the St. John's Episcopal Church in Richmond, Virginia on March 20th, 1775. Here, representatives from each colony gathered to voice their concerns about the rebellion against the British that was clearly unfolding. Remember, England was the most powerful force on earth at this time. And even though each colony had different feelings on the subject, Patrick Henry boldly stood up before them and gave his famous speech, "Give me liberty or give me death." His speech shifted the support towards fighting for independence and started to unite the colonies toward the cause of freedom. So again, what is liberty? It is uniting multiple perspectives towards a cause of freedom from tyranny. It is taking a risk to build a dream against the greatest of adversaries. For us to understand the true power of liberty, we need to look at the Declaration of Independence, drafted by Thomas Jefferson and adopted by the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on July 4th of 1776. This event officially united the 13 colonies towards the goal of becoming a free and independent nation. The Founding Fathers examined the rise and fall of many different societies, and they understood that to create the most diverse and unified nation that has ever existed, its foundation needed to be set upon these principles. To quote the document, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among those include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed." What does that mean? For the first time in the history of mankind, a group of people united under the concept that all of us are equal. They understood that it is not a man, a crown, a company, or a government that gives us our unique perspectives in life. It was from God, which means that no one on earth can take away who you are or control us to do what they want. They understood that we should be able to use our own individual efforts from the life that we choose, and that each of us should respect each other regardless of our race, color, or creed. They understood that by giving each of us the individual liberty to pursue happiness, that we would create the most powerful society that the world has ever known. They also understood that the government we put in place should be chosen by the people. That's because every person on earth is capable of sin. We should not allow the few to dictate the actions of the many, because when too much power is given to one person, they will abuse it. This means that the Founding Fathers understood that when few have more power, it will lead to corruption and tyranny. They proceeded to enact the Bill of Rights in 1791, which became the foundation to the Constitution. It was made up of the first 10 amendments that protected the liberties of the people and limited the government to give power and greater constitutional rights to each individual, you and me. It spread the power of the government to 3 branches to create a system of checks and balances. They did all of this to protect your individual liberty. So again, I ask you, what is liberty? It is the foundation for the greatest, most diverse, and most powerful nation that the planet has ever seen in the history of mankind. It gives the power to the individual, you and me. It is understanding that government should not dictate our lives. It means that individuals should dictate the government. To understand the true implementation of liberty, we see that after 70 years, the United States had gone to war with itself over the issue of slavery, when President Abraham Lincoln, who started the Republican Party, was elected on March of 1861. In April of that year, the war began. 2 years had passed, and on January 1st of 1863, President Lincoln gave his Emancipation Proclamation speech. And in it he said, "I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves shall be free, and upon this act sincerely believe it to be an act of justice warranted by the Constitution, and I invoke the considerate judgment and the gracious favor of Almighty God." President Lincoln did this because he identified that for our nation to truly abide by the rules of liberty, all men are equal. By 1865, slavery was abolished in the United States, and unfortunately, Lincoln had died. However, the United States had officially become one of the first nations on earth to abolish slavery. In that same year, France had wished to acknowledge this momentous achievement and began to construct the Statue of Liberty. They would complete it by 1876 so that it would also commemorate 100 years as a nation that truly strived for its liberty. So once again, my fellow citizens, I ask you, what is liberty? It is dedication to overcoming the evil norms of society that inhibit anyone their rights to freedom. It is standing up for what is right, even when you must fight against yourself. It is about leaving a legacy of freedom for the future generations, even when it costs you your life. To comprehend the effects and the evolution of liberty, we need to acknowledge that the United States, with its foundations built upon liberty, has become the most diverse and open society in history. We can observe that it is a nation that has created its culture by adopting the cultures from all walks of life. However, we can see that when these cultures first come together, there has historically been problems between these ideas and new ideas and old ideas. Some might even suggest that we have seen more conflict between races and sexes and cultures than anywhere else in the world. However, if we take a step back, we can identify that liberty always prevails. Of course, when new ideas arise, there is conflict. Much like when you introduce a new species to a new environment, that species needs to adapt to its new environment. I want you to imagine for a moment, if you will, you visit a zoo and it's full of multiple species of animals, but there were no cages keeping them separate. You could hypothesize that the dominant carnivores would likely wipe out the most of the other animals. We could expect to see the same behavior in people with ideas and cultures. So what makes us different from a zoo with no walls? We apply liberty. We can historically see that society changes to adapt these new ideas and integrate them into our society. A most recent example of this was the rights for same-sex marriages. In the 1990s, it had become a very predominant issue, but by 2004, we saw the first state recognize same-sex marriage. And by 2015, it was accepted by all 50 states. Obviously, as a conservative straight male, I have the liberty to say that this is irrelevant to me. I don't care. However, as someone who believes in liberty, I can say if it makes you happy and you're not forcing me to change my beliefs, then you should be free to marry whoever you want. It's your liberty to do so. Even though it may take time for liberty to prevail when new ideas arise, it will always prevail if we truly apply and embrace the principles set forth by our founding fathers. As we embrace liberty, society will always change for the better. So of course I'm going to ask you again, what is liberty? It is acceptance and respect for everyone's individual rights and freedoms, even if they differ from your own. It is what gives everyone a right to find their own happiness and protects us from being silenced or neglected. So finally, my fellow Americans, I ask you, why are we not more concerned about liberty? Why is it that we are not more educated on the importance of liberty? Why do we not promote the power that liberty has to bring about positive change in society? I say to you that we live in the greatest experiment of society that the world has ever known. Be wary, my fellow Americans, that we must not ever take our liberty for granted. The Founding Fathers understood that all men sin, and if left unchecked, tyranny will rise if we neglect our liberty. For much like the zoo with no cages, we are subject to predators that will pounce upon us if liberty is lost. We all must spread this message to our fellow citizens about the importance of liberty, and in so doing, unite the people to ensure that our liberties are not infringed. So I say to you, go forth, my fellow citizens, and proudly carry the torch of liberty with each step that you take. From this day forward, when you are encountered by that question, what is liberty? You will understand exactly why you are truly free to answer that question. Thank you for watching this video. My name is Johannes, and I am truly trying to make a difference in the society that we live in today. I'm so thankful that you took the time to learn and understand why liberty is so important and what we need to do to make sure that we do not lose our liberties. And I'm trying to get into politics somehow so that I can make sure that our children and our grandchildren will not lose these ever so important liberties that are so very crucial to the society that we live in. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe.